everybody. My name is Diane Hansen, and I'm the Chief Management Consultant of What Works Consultants, and we help organizations and leaders through change. So we've all experienced a lot of change lately. We do this through innovating process, helping with talent optimization, and internal communication. So I have a number I want to throw out to you guys, and feel free to respond. This is a very interactive session. I'm not going to sit here and preach at you for an hour. 35,000. What do you think 35,000 alludes to? The number 35,000. Just take a guess.
Income.
Okay.
Expensive.
Okay.
How much I make a week?
How much do you
Okay.
make a week?
Yeehaw.
Seeing if anyone's paying
My
attention.
best friend. How about opportunity?
Okay.
I was thinking reach.
All right. 35,000 is the number of decisions the average human makes per day.
Stop it.
Yeah, that is the number of decisions the average human makes every single day.
Wow.
So all of these micro decisions have the ability to do one of two things: bring you up or bring you down. And sometimes we become so unconscious about these micro decisions that these micro decisions begin to run our lives and we don't even know it. Anyone ever heard the phrase, what you focus on increases? Okay, so when these micro decisions are to the upside, you experience effortless upside, which means things are going right. They're going right in your company, they're going right with your customers, they're going right with your contracts, they're going right with your relationships, they're going right with everything, and it just seems like you're in flow and you don't know why. And then there's the flip side, where you wake up in the morning, you stub your toe, and the first micro decision of the day is, ouch, this sucks, life hurts. And that too can cause this cascade. So, just a note about the books that you have in your hands. This is Creating Critical Opportunity. It is available on Amazon.com. If you want to write in it, draw in it, thumb through it, anything you want. If you want to buy it, it's $10. You can Venmo me. If not, feel free just to thumb through it anyway and get a gist of it. It's also going to be up here on the screen for you. So, just a stab. What do you think critical opportunity is? What do you think?
An opportunity where you are going to increase your lifestyle in one way or another.
Okay. Okay.
Becomes so critical decision. Right
big
then and there
decision.
about your business.
Critical decision making.
It's like an important opportunity. It's in the sense that if you miss the opportunity, it's not so much that you're missing the opportunity so much as that it could actually hurt you.
Okay.
Critical opportunity at this point, right? You have to make a decision.
You have your
Go your way or
crossroads.
it's going to not go your way.
Yeah, if you take the wrong turn at Albuquerque or you go the right way. Okay. Very good definitions, all of them. So what critical opportunity is, it's the ability to take a crisis and turn it on its head to where opportunity is produced out of the crisis versus the crisis pulling you down. This is what is often known as the spark of innovation. So creating critical opportunity is about taking that moment of, oh my God, this just happened, this is a gut punch. And instead of doing this, going down the downward spiral, spiraling up into more opportunity than you would have realized without it. So my story of critical opportunity really began with my mama, Barbara Phelps. She is my favorite survivor. She has survived breast cancer twice over. She was divorced when she was almost 48 years old. She had a young daughter to raise, and had the divorce being in the early 80s, she had to reinvent herself. She was a housewife. So this moment drove her into nursing and going into nursing school and graduating from nursing school when she was 50 years old. and having this little girl to raise as well. So I heard no a whole lot growing up. I had to think differently because I heard no. So this is a cauliflower kid. And a cauliflower kid is a knockoff Cabbage Patch Kid. So it's the Cabbage Patch Kid that the poor kids got. Only I got mine at a garage sale and there was no cauliflower. So I heard no a lot growing up. And I like to say it is not getting to yes that gets you to success. It's creatively getting past the no. And I'll tell you why. Because in that no lies all the data that you are going to need to expand, to grow, to innovate, and to truly serve your customer. So in this case, my customer was my mom, and I was 8 years old, and I wanted to go roller skating with the church really badly. And what happens when a lot of 8-year-olds want to do things? Like, what's the 8-year-old reaction to this?
Temper tantrum.
Temper tantrum.
Susie's mom letting her do it.
Right,
Everybody's
Debbie.
doing it.
Right.
Yep.
I got the church directory, I picked up the phone, and I started smiling and dialing. And by the end of my smiling and dialing, I had a ride, I had my trip covered, I had food, and I had a trip back home. How did I do this? How do you think that 8-year-old did that?
Critical thinking.
Yeah, right? I started to think about what was possible versus what was impossible. We are often wired to mitigate our own risk before our risk is even a thing. I had a conversation earlier today with a consultant who's an attorney who's very tech savvy, and we had a project we were going to bid for tech process and innovation for a law firm. And I'm like, oh my God, you'd be perfect for this. And immediately he tells me 10 reasons why he's not perfect. So this is the surefire way to de-innovate yourself out of business. So what that 8-year-old version of me did is I picked up that phone and I said, what's possible? I didn't think about embarrassment. My mom was pissed, by the way. My mom was really upset. And she said, you know, Diane, if you want something, you really just go out and get it, don't you? And she kind of meant it to be a little, like, stop doing that. That's embarrassing to me. But children don't see it that way, right? Even the temper tantrum that the 8-year-old throws has a purpose. Even the pointing has a purpose. The thing about the temper tantrum and the thing about the she's doing it is those are actually downward spiral behaviors. And I will explain what those are a little bit later. So I want to know why now? Like, you saw this workshop was going to be put on. You said yes, you're sitting here right now. So what motivated you to be sitting in this seat right now? I just kind of want to get a feel for the room.
You know, to be honest with you, I saw your advertisement on, and I usually come to the coffee connections, and I've been traveling the last couple of weeks, and I looked at it, I sent it to my marketing manager, I go, what do you think? And she sent me some stuff on it. She says, I think it's a good idea, and so, you know, at the end of the day, I believe in critical opportunities. I taught my children critical opportunity by telling them no when they couldn't go to the roller skating rink. And as they were pouting, I said, you know, if you'd have worked me a little harder, I might have let you go and helped you provide a way. And so the next time they did it, they started working me a little bit more. And so I have 3 girls making over $1 million a year each in their businesses.
Daddy.
So, because I pushed them, I made them think of ways outside the box to convince me, and they learned to convince other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Monica, what brought you?
You.
That was
Your
my
biggest
ear.
fan, sir. I'm your biggest fan. We gotta meet like your fan
Aw.
club to come around, and I always enjoy you, and I bought this book a while back and worked it. It's very, very interesting, so I want to hear some more about it.
Awesome.
So I come to the coffee thing on Thursdays, and I was here this morning meeting with them when they reached out to me and asked if I was going to be doing it today. I was like, oh yeah. I didn't think it was still in the morning. I thought it was well into the afternoon. But I try to open myself up to learn every day, and so this was a good opportunity.
I love it.
Nice.
Learning mindset. And
I came mostly for you, to support you, and because I like listening to you talk, and I'm always interested in what you have to say. And anything is helpful right now, because I'm just starting as you know, I'm just starting my business on my own. So I always listen to you.
Same thing, of course. I'm one of your biggest supporters, but I'm also here for myself, for my awareness to see what. When the universe throws things at you, you have to look at that, maybe not as critical opportunity, but sometimes as critical opportunity, and take it and use it and be positive in your life. So that's for me here in different changes that I'm going through, and making sure that my awareness is out there to make sure that that opportunity is still there.
I'll just really be honest. My office is there, so I try to come and support as much as I can if I'm not tied up and busy for those who are facilitating the lunch and learns. And plus, it's an opportunity to see the subject matter and what nuggets you can really get from the opportunities or the topics. So for me, that's the main reason why I attend.
I love it. Well, whatever your reason, thank you for being here. The reason why you want to change is really important. It could be revenue, it could be increased sales growth, it could be notoriety, it could be launching a new business, it could be any of those things that elicit change. But often the motivation to change is not gained unless you really have dropped all that resistance behind status quo. Status quo ends up being ultimately the enemy, because status quo keeps us stagnant. I want you to think about the pandemic that we're still kind of going through, but hopefully the worst is over. What happened to those business owners that stuck to their business as usual and did not change? What happened?
They thought outside the box.
They got angry.
If they didn't think outside the box, their stress levels way up, depression, alcoholism, all of that through the roof, lost businesses, shuttered doors. Not being open to change is actually critical in itself, because it does drive down innovation. So, this is my original teaching model for this method. So this method was created during my graduate program at the University of Southern California. There I achieved my master's in communications management, and I had the professor look at me when I created this model and said, "Are you ready for this?" What are you talking about? Am I ready for this? She said, "This is your life's work. Like this model shortens the cycle time between a problem and not only its solution, but innovation." So when I was talking about that downward spiral, those little girls who would throw a temper tantrum, cry. First, your critical situation kicks off, and if you go down the downward spiral, this is kind of how it goes. Denial, disavowal, and ego. It's not happening. I'm not going to associate it with it happening, and I'm either too good to or not good enough to deal with it. That becomes the first reaction. The second reaction is numbing or dissociation. Let's go have a drink. Let's forget all about it. It's not even happening. I call this ostrich in the head syndrome. Third is victimhood and blame. Ah, poor me, this always happens to me, or it happened because of you.
Right.
So this can actually be used to map human resources patterns as well, because as triage is needed in critical communication situations in the workplace, this is the path people will follow. And if it's not stopped and brought into awareness, consciousness, and humility, or I know this is happening, I am intimately aware of the aspects of this situation, and I am neither too good to nor not good enough to address this, the downward spiral will continue. So the downward spiral then goes from victimhood and blame to isolation and joining forces with hate. So these are all two flip sides of the same penny here, based on different personality types. Isolative types will shut their door and just try to deal with it on their own. Isolative types will leave the office or take an extra long lunch or do that pattern where the person has already quit but they're still on the job. Joining forces with hate is when the employee then goes and tries to co-sign everybody else into the drama.
Right.
Hey, you know what's happening with the boss? You know what's happening with the boss? You agree with me, right? Yeah, let's all rise up. So both of these are toxic because isolation, you cut off your data.
I call that vinegar in my wine barrel,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I remind my staff that if you got that vinegar going in our wine barrel, we're not gonna be making those wine barrels for very long, and nobody's gonna like the taste of them, so you better get rid of the vinegar, or I'm gonna get rid of you.
Exactly. Exactly. It can, poisoning the well. Poisoning the well it's very well known, and it stirs up separation, it stirs up discord, and it takes people away from shared vision of the accomplishment of the goal. So that persists. Then what happens is hopelessness and powerlessness. So now this happens on two ends. Hopelessness and powerlessness of the manager because you've got basically a mob outside your door now and you don't know what to do about it. Hopelessness and powerless actually on the side of the mob, that's why they're so angry, because they feel powerless to create change, and because they're going about it the wrong way, they're not going to get it. So, and hopelessness of this is never going to change. So when you think of, the divisions that you've experienced in your life and you just don't feel like you have any control over it, this then drives down into one of two things. No action. Just, it's gonna brew, I'm just not gonna do anything. Or miracle seeking. Now sometimes miracle seekers get lucky. Sometimes miracle seekers get lucky and find the solution, and that's why it works. That's why each one of these I call toxic safety blankets. And the reason why they're toxic safety blankets is a safety blanket by itself feels nice, warm, and cozy. And then you put another one on. Okay, I'm getting a little too hot. Another one. Oh my God, please stop putting blankets on me. Another one, you're sweating. Another one, you can't breathe. Another one. So it stagnates the ability to move, breathe, function properly as an organization or as a leader. So the thing about this method is it applies to individual leaders and it applies to an organizational unit as a whole. And of course the last part is giving up. Now this could be the ultimate giving up of I quit, I'm out of here, I'm completely changing my situation. Good luck dealing with this mess. Or worse. The good way to give up is actually to become aware. I am tired of business as usual. I'm done. I need to dig into this. And this is where this part comes in. Now at any given point in time where these toxic safety blankets are piled on, you can shake them off. You can throw them off and decide to become conscious. So I often use a pair of sunglasses for this example of what awareness, consciousness, and humility is. What are these?
Shades.
They're sunglasses.
Yeah.
Okay? I am aware that I am holding some sunglasses. Okay? To become conscious, I need to examine these. Okay? Well, these are black. They have tinted lenses. They're Prada. There's makeup on the insides of the nose things. Okay? So now I'm becoming more conscious of the situation. Raising awareness is never enough. Raising consciousness is everything, because awareness is just knowing it exists. Now, humility is all about being set and ready to take a journey. If you think you're too good to take the journey, you're not going to take the journey. You think you're not good enough to take the journey, you're not going to take the journey. So you have to come to this middle space where you or the team member you're coaching or whoever is neither too good to nor not good enough. They're not any of those things. They're straight in the middle, willing and ready to take action. I cannot tell you how many leaders I have had walk through our doors that they're fed up, they're aware something is going on, but when it comes to that consciousness piece of observing it, I'm the CEO, I don't need to look at that. I'm going to tell the operations guy to do that. Really? So as CEO, what is your job? To make strategic decisions for the company? To assure that your C-level is actually operating as it should? So if you're just going to be aware, that's a fine first step, but you are not too good to dig into the data. Next step, once you get there, you can then emotionally process and accept the situation. So emotional processing is basically, what did you expect to happen? What is the expectation you need to mourn? If the expectation you need to mourn is we just did this launch and we expected sales to be 2 million and sales were 500,000, you gotta mourn that because you expected that to happen. You mourn it so you're not tied to it. If you continue to be tied to it, you're gonna be pulled back and you're soon gonna find yourself too good to, not good enough. Acceptance. Okay. Expectations weren't met. So what, now what? So when you say so what, now what, you are ready to really look and take personal responsibility. So you take personal responsibility, those involved, understanding who the stakeholders are in the change and what responsibility each individual has. This is where job descriptions, key performance indicators, objectives and key results really come in a company. Because if you don't have that foundational understanding in the team of not only what they do, but what success looks like, you're not going to get the success. You might luck yourself into the success. But in terms of repeatable, measurable success, you're not going to get it. So then when you can have responsibility taken, understand what your part or their part of something is, you can perform an assessment of the available pathways to you. So problem solving can take one of two directions, Band-Aid or root cause. The Band-Aid might get things moving, but they might break down the road. Case in point, fix a flat. Fix a flat does not prevent you from needing another tire down the road. It fixes the flat temporarily so that you get to where you need to be so that you can eventually get a tire, right? But, what do some people do? Fix a flat, done. And that's what some people do with their businesses. Fix a flat, done. Problem solved, done. On to the next one. But have you really looked at the different pathways to evaluate what the options are? And have you questioned to the depth that you need to understand those paths? Once you do, you can then gather support. So if you haven't noticed yet, these are all two sides of the same penny, each one of these. It's a choice. It's one of those 35,000 decisions you make. You can go up or you can go down. So there's different kinds of ways of gathering support. Isolation is a social mechanism. Joining forces with hate is a social mechanism. Gathering the right kind of support is also a social mechanism. Depending on whether you've done the work is the support that you gather. You ever heard the phrase, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most? That is a real construct of what happens when you either gather the right support or the wrong support. Lay down with the dogs, you get fleas. So gathering support means who needs to be on that resource team? Who is on that board of directors, so to speak, for your decision making? The reason why What Works Consultants is the CEO's best friend is often a CEO doesn't have that. You can't go up to the board because you report to the board, and the board's gonna have questions, and you still have questions. And then as a CEO, also, sometimes you can't really go down through the rank and file unless you're doing maybe a formal survey or something like that, because, well, it's not time yet to talk about those things. So this getting stuck happens, and that's why CEOs and CCOs and COOs seek us out to become that sounding board. So after you gather support, then you take strategic action. Notice you haven't taken any action until you get to this point. The reason for this is something called mental modeling. So Peter Senge did a book called The Fifth Discipline. And in this book, he talks about mental models. And he describes each and every one of us as basically human video cameras. And what we do is, as we go about our day-to-day life, we record information. And as we record that information, we assign belief to it. And that belief that we assign, we make an inference about that belief. And then we either take action or we don't. We communicate or we don't. What happens a lot is we don't. We get stuck in that reflexive loop. I saw something, I'm making an assumption, I believe something about it, oh my God. I saw something, I believe something, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And all of a sudden you have this wheel spinning in your head about something that's either real or imagined that's going on. The key to unlock this is communication. So when you're taking strategic action, keep in dialogue. When you're taking action, keep in dialogue. Then, and only then, can you celebrate your progress. I started to say what you focus on increases. The reason why is you attract more of that. Ever played Slug Bug or I Spy with My Little Eye? So, I spy with my little eye something blue. Sky's blue, that car's blue, that chair's blue. All of a sudden I'm seeing a lot of blue. It's called selection bias. And when you activate selection bias in your favor, you create more of the outcomes that you want. When you align your selection bias with your objectives and key results and your key performance indicators for your team, you're unstoppable. Absolutely unstoppable as a company and as a leader. And finally, moving forward in crisis learning. Because once you do this a few times, it becomes like second nature. It's just what you do. And you can spot these things a million miles away. Okay, so how do we stop it?
Okay, Diane, if you don't mind, can you go back to the spiral?
Sure.
Just a quick observation of
Sure.
a question. So you mentioned that it was on both sides of the coin. So
Uh-huh.
I look at this spiral as an inverted pyramid. So if we were to take this and really just move it to the top, because some people started giving up as opposed to moving forward in how we do, because I noticed you started at the bottom of the denial, and then you went up to giving up, and then you took it back to awareness and consciousness. So what happens if we were to invert this spiral? Would the situation be different, or be the same, or you just taking a different path before you actually get to your moving forward piece?
So you may
Does that make
think that
sense?
some people start with giving up, but
Mhm.
that's actually the first thing you see.
Right.
That's actually the first action that you see. But what's actually going on is that before the giving up,
Mhm.
these aspects have been triggered in some way, form, or fashion. These are all stop points. So you may not see it until they give up,
Mhm.
but they felt hopeless and powerless before they gave up. They felt like a victim before they gave up. So there are some key questions as a leader that you can ask before you see the action. And the downward spiral You know, the action might take place here with joining forces with hate or isolation, or it might take the miracle seeking might be some action, or the giving up might be action. But it's what's happening underneath the surface, and that's why active and open communication before the action is apparent is really important with this model. Because people will get stuck. That reflexive loop that I was talking about, the video camera. You don't know what's going on up here. And giving up, I understand your observation, but giving up is not the first thing that happens. There are things that happen that are documented, and I'd be happy to share my research with you, that happen deeper in the psyche long before the giving up action actually takes place. So the key as a leader is to do exploratory questioning. So let me fast forward into exploratory questioning, because I think that it's actually really good timing for this.
But wouldn't you go through some of those things before you started going up the spiral? In other words, depression?
Yep.
I mean, I can remember 2 years ago when the pandemic came, and I looked at one of my businesses, and I was scared, I was concerned, I was, felt somewhat defeated, and then I started saying, wait a minute, you just gotta dig your heels in, and you gotta think outside the box. So I think those are natural things that you would go through before you actually get down in because I played a little football in my life, 3-point stance.
Right.
And say, all right, you are not gonna beat me on this play, and kept moving forward and forward and forward. Right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And all of this is really natural, and much of it is unconscious as well. Much of it is very unconscious. So as you spiral down, one thing that can really get you and get you into those deep, dark places is it becomes not just about that one thing. It becomes about that thing and that thing and that thing and that thing and that thing, and it's all just turning into a huge mountain of overwhelm.
It's an elephant.
It
And
is.
the only way you eat an elephant is.
One bite at a time. I like to use the hiking analogy as well, because you think about, oh wow, these people who climb Mount Everest. And these people who climb Mount Everest don't wake up one morning and go, oh, I think I'm gonna climb Mount Everest today. No, well, first of all, you gotta know where the trailhead is. You've gotta know what resources you need in your pack. And if you need a Sherpa, you're gonna have to have that Sherpa too. You're gonna need to keep up morale during that hike, because if you don't, then you're absolutely gonna quit. So celebration and everything like that is really important as you hike. And each of these pieces as you climb, the reinforcement, because any of that downward spiral can sneak in as you're trying to accomplish either eating the elephant and you're like, ugh, I'm too full. Well, take a break, put it in the refrigerator, you can eat it later. I changed it to hiking because I was talking to one lady one day, and she was a really avid PETA member, and she's like, I don't like the idea of eating elephants. I'm like, okay, we're hiking now. And it's been hiking forevermore. So the issue becomes that this downward spiral is not as clear cut as I'm focused on one thing. One thing becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes 4, and it becomes wickedly complex to solve. So identifying it down to the one critical situation that is going to move the needle most for you. And that's why it's called a critical opportunity. There may be millions of opportunities on the table. 35,000, again, 35,000 decisions. There might be so many opportunities, but there is one that is going to move the needle for you as a leader, as a business owner, whatever you're facing. So I encourage you to rank them. Just split them all out and rank them. and rank them according to what's going to bring you revenue, what if it changed is going to bring you joy, and what if it changed is going to give you energy to do more. Because once you solve one, sometimes they fall like dominoes, and sometimes once you've solved one, you have the energy to solve the next one. So address one at a time. Once you have that critical situation, write it down and commit to it. Then what you're going to look at are the positive and negative facts of the situation. Here's what I say is facts in quotes. Because as long as it's real to you, it's a fact. And you're making decisions based on it. So if you think something is an absolute fact, you're going to add that into your equation. So what are some of the positive facts? What are some of the negative facts? Then you're going to start asking yourselves questions. But you're going to want to ask yourself any question but why. Can anyone tell me what it is about the word why that you don't want to ask it?
It's personal.
Personal?
Usually why elicits another question or
Okay.
another thought. Sometimes good, sometimes not.
Yeah. Why is emotionally loaded? If you ever want to make someone cry, you ask them why. You ask them why 7 times, they might need a therapist. So when you ask why, you are digging deep. And the reason why we start with the why of your change is because your change actually does need to be emotional. You need to bust past your resistance to the status quo. And sometimes to get through that, you have to get really emotional about the reasons for you doing it. So you're going to collect these positive facts, you're going to collect these negative facts, and you're going to commit to not beating yourself up at any point during the process. And that's very important because that beating oneself up during the process is part of the ego of too good to, not good enough to. Then what you're going to do as you're starting this research is you're going to choose a character. So this is positive dissociation. So characters help us take on personas. And personas help us achieve great things. There's another book which was not available while I was doing my research for this method that talks about the power of archetype and masked identities to call in what you want in life. So in this case, you're going to be whatever you want to be. You can be a detective, a researcher, an inquisitor, a questioner, a curious kid, a journalist, an adventurer, a seer, anything but you. And the reason why you don't want to be you is you are way close to that situation. And you need a little bit of objective distance while you are questioning. Another reason why you don't ask why does not provide that objective distance.
So is this a workbook
This is a
that you
workbook.
would go through
Mhm.
and reflect on the circumstances or situations that you may run into?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is not a novel. This is a workbook. This is intended to actually be worked. So you bring on this persona to give yourself some objective distance. And then you label it and start to break down the data. And you start to challenge your facts. So your fact says, these are black sunglasses, okay? This is true because this is the color black, obviously. This is not true because there's actually some gold in here. So really they're not pure black sunglasses, and if someone's looking for pure black sunglasses, they might actually be a little bit disappointed by that gold. So you look at each one of your assumptions, your facts, the things that are facts because you believe them to be true. Now, one of your questions is, what evidence do I have that this is a fact? What research exists to prove this if it's research-based? Or what research within my organization proves this to be true? There's no research to prove it to be true. Hello, research department. Hello, consultant. So, danger. Watch out for the downward spiral. So, whatever you discover, know that the downward spiral is natural. It's just what we do, because we're human, because we're not toxically positive. Toxic positivity is all about just being positive no matter what, not looking at the facts. This is a fact finding and discovery mission. And during that, sometimes it can get a little intense. My mom started crying when I was smiling and dialing. And it's because she didn't want people to know that she had to work and couldn't take me. And that not only that we really didn't have the money. So she was working so hard for less than $5 an hour. So this was her reaction to it. So as you start to go into this process, others' reactions will come up. Your reactions will come up. Just be mindful. Everyone operates differently, and give yourself permission to be human. Okay? Do them without judging yourself, and break it down. So this is true because, this isn't true because, is it possible that? So that last line is really important for each one of these. Is it possible that? No matter how crazy the idea sounds, and this is where innovation comes from, is it comes from the exploration of things that were not once thought of. So, is it possible that, and just take it off in a wild direction.
Or what if?
Or what if,
Yeah.
exactly. So once you look at the what ifs, or the possibilities, you just do it for every single one of them, and the workbook provides space for that. And then at the end of it, play 20 questions. So this is where asking any question but why comes in. You're going to play 20 questions, and you're just going to pull 20 questions out of your possibilities. It's okay to be in learning mode. Everyone is in learning mode, so it's okay to be human. Just know that competence equals confidence. If you run across anyone on your staff who has a confidence problem, anyone ever run across a staff member that has a confidence problem? I know I have. Show them where they're competent and get them to reiterate with themselves on a regular basis their areas of competence by keeping a competence journal, something along those lines. But once you start focusing on what's right, what's working, where you're competent, that confidence skyrockets. So I did a lost job example in the workbook. What degree would I pursue? What universities have that degree program? How much is tuition there per year? Just getting down into the detail. And once you get down into the detail and list out those 20 questions, you write out those answers. Now those answers, we want to keep out of isolation. This workbook is not to be done alone. This is where others come in. It's where you source your team, you source your spouse, you source, anyone in your environment that is a stakeholder. And this is important. A stakeholder of the decision. Why don't we want to ask non-stakeholders what to do about our issues?
There's nothing in it for them.
No, they got no skin in the game. They have no skin in the game, and they can install their past experience onto your situation, making you second guess the whole process. So you start to, when you're gathering support, you're going to want to gather stakeholders who have a stake in one of two things, in the situation or a deep stake in you. And you can hold that objective space and also become the detective, the researcher, something like that. So you list all your possibilities, and then just do a gut check with yourself. Is this more or less than what you thought was possible before the situation? Then we keep digging into the data. Watch yourself talk as you dig into your data. You'll need to address anything that's popping up and look at some things you might not want to see. Where might you be in denial about this situation? Entire market segments can be absolutely ignored without digging into the data on that segment's viability. I had a client who was looking at a business unit for its viability. And they were so into the why. The denial is really deep because it was the great-great-grandfather who started this business. And the viability decision was on the business unit great-great-grandfather started. So it's a very deep, emotional thing going on. So where he might have been in denial was that he was attaching his legacy to the wrong thing.
So would you say this book or workbook is, you have to want to change,
Yeah,
right? I mean, if you're unwilling to change
yeah.
and you want to stay stagnant,
Yeah.
it's worthless.
It's absolutely worthless. Yeah, it would be more worthwhile in your fireplace if you're not willing to change.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah, exactly, especially this time of year. There is actually a formula that I want to share with you, knowing that the closest person to the decision maker is yourself. So this is the formula to change created by Dr. Michael Beer and published in Harvard Business Review. This is how you get change. So change happens when your dissatisfaction with status quo multiplied by your modeling or your vision for the change or what it's going to be like in the future if you solve this change. By your process, these things here have to be greater than the cost of the change or resistance. If it's not greater, you're not going to get the change. So if you're not ready to change, if status quo is warm and fuzzy and amazing and it's the warmest toxic safety blanket you've ever had in your whole entire life, you won't get the change because your resistance is too great. Process falls apart, you don't get the change. Motivation falls apart, or modeling or vision for the change falls apart, you don't get the change. You could have all of the process in the world, but if the process isn't followed, you don't get the change. So when you look at your change scenario, look at the formula. So the spirals were created to give meaning to these letters. Dissatisfaction is the downward spiral. Resistance is the downward spiral. If you're blaming, you certainly aren't dissatisfied with what's happening. It's all their fault. I'm not dissatisfied with what's going on with me because it's their fault. Modeling or vision and process, that's all the upward spiral. So what this method did is it took this academic formula and it gave it actionability. Without this, the formula absolutely makes a lot of sense. But there was a lot of how left over as to how to make this formula actionable. And so that's what critical opportunity method does, is it makes it actionable. Once we get past that and we let go of those toxic safety blankets and we become conscious versus unconscious, because that downward spiral can be largely unconscious. So once we start shedding those things, it becomes so much easier to actually see what is real, to actively question it, to determine what's possible, and then to create those strategic plans. So there's a page in this book that has a strategic plan, and you can create a strategic plan for the change. So, final thoughts. Understanding victimhood and blame. Realizing where your power lies. Congratulations, every single person in this room is the most powerful person in their lives. The locus of control is so important because the farther away you believe you are from the decision maker, the farther you believe you are from the solution. The thing is you are the decision maker. You call the shots. So this is the most important part of the downward spiral, other than, of course, the reaching out part and, poisoning the well. But as far as personal responsibility, to really look, a wise mentor of mine once told me, you play victim so well, you should carry around your own body chalk. So I was really offended. I was like, she's assassinating my character. This is, I'm pissed off. And then I'm like, wait a second, I'm blaming her. So anytime you say he, or she, you've got the victimhood giggle. So just know that at the end of the day, you really are your number one decision maker in life. And when you know that, you can fully celebrate. You can fully get into action, and you can really tackle change without giving up and continuously move forward. So thank you, everybody. I'm open for some questions. If you have any, you've been really great during the talk too.